What is going on, Miami Dolphins fans? Ben Morgan's Up Network. Today we're talking the Dolphins losing their preseason opener to the Atlanta Falcons 19-3. But just like we talked about on Friday with the game's preview show, it's not about win-losses in the preseason. It's about evaluating players, seeing how those guys that are competing for spots are doing, seeing how those guys that are competing for roster spots are doing. So that's what I like to talk about in the previews and especially kind of in these post games as well. So like I said, I'm going to be talking top takeaways from the game and then mix in some notes on specific plays, specific players that we had our eye on, and then that stood out for one reason or not in the game. But before I jump in, let's hear from you. Drop your thoughts on the Miami Dolphins' first preseason game in the comments. Curious to hear your takeaways as well. But takeaway number one from me is kind of the quarterback comparison, because you probably saw the list of Dolphins that weren't playing. It was a pretty significant list, and it obviously included Tua Tagovailoa. So the quarterbacks got split in half. Mike White gets the first half. Skylar Thompson gets the second half. Mike White proceeds to go 9 of 14, 85 yards, obviously no touchdowns, one interception, and he was sacked once. Skylar comes in for the second half, goes 10 of 16, 104 yards, obviously no touchdowns, but two interceptions, one fumble lost, and he was sacked 4 times. So Mike White obviously gets to play with a little bit better teammates being in the first half. Led promising first drive, a very promising first drive. However, ended with the interception in the end zone. In my opinion, the play was there. It was a good call. It was just a little bit late on timing. And unfortunately, being late on a throw ended up costing him twice, because it was that time. And then the second time was when they went forward on fourth down inside the 10-yard line, and they had Braxton Berrios. I know the announcer of the game was saying he's got to lead him further. And sure, at that point in time, leading him further would have done it as well. But if that throws even a little bit earlier, that is 6 for Mike White and the Dolphins offense. But he did drive the Dolphins offense into scoring position 3 times in the first half. So the opportunities were there. A lot of the execution was there. The results just weren't, because the results for those 3 drives, interception, the turnover on downs, and then they went forward on fourth down. Again, later with one of those, ended up getting the tip pass for another turnover on downs. But then Skylar Thompson, obviously the first interception that he had on 3rd and long, throwing up a prayer. The defense was already sitting back. It was 3rd and long, just trying to make something happen. That one, I bet he probably wishes he could have just checked down or thrown away. The second interception was the pick 6. Felt a little bit rushed, threw the ball high to Coleman, goes through his hands. And the worst thing was, after that, the very next drive, he takes the sack fumble as well. But I did say it a little bit earlier. It's not like he was playing with any studs by any means. He wasn't getting much help from the offensive line. Mentioned the 4 sacks that he was basically had to take. One he didn't, though. He did hold the ball way too long on one, took that huge sack. And what was worse after that was that he followed it up on the next play with the delay of the game. So a little bit more of that pre-snap penalty stuff that we're really trying to clean up, that we'll talk a little bit more about as well. But if I'm picking a winner from this quarterback comparison, I'll go with Mike White. He led the team into more scoring opportunities. He did have some nice passes, some clean passes, some good timing earlier in the game leading up to that first interception. But like I said, just a little bit late on a couple of throws, which would have made him the clear-cut winner if he would have executed on those 2 touchdown passes. But like I said, did have much better protection as well. Let's go on to takeaway number 2 for me, and that was the team's basic effort to establish the run game, find success, and do it early. They finished the game with 26 carries, 168 yards at 6.5 yards per carry. Myles Gaskin led the way with 57. Ezekama had the 2 end-arounds for 52, A-Chain 25, Chris Brooks 24, and Skylar had 10. Now, in the first half, they ran for 129 of those 168 yards. So that's where the majority of the success and the commitment really came from. But what came with that as well was a 3-minute advantage in that first half in time of possession. So it was working. The yards were there, the commitment was there, and the end result of controlling the ball was there as well. And I'll say this, Myles Gaskin looked pretty damn solid, better than I anticipated him looking as well. Now, we'll find out if this was just Myles Gaskin looking good and he's part of the plan, or Was it by design to get him those action early and get him going early? Maybe try to bump up a little bit of trade value in case we end up signing a guy like Dalvin Cook. Obviously, that's speculation. That'll sort itself out later. But his 35-yard run, nice shifty juke second level. But to get to that second level, opened up very nice by the right side of the offensive line. Cedric Ogbuehi and Robert Jones, which leads me conveniently to today's viewer comment, because on Friday, I asked the viewers, who are you most looking forward to watching and paying attention to in this preseason opener? And it was Dean Grisham, 2858, who nominated both Cedric Ogbuehi and Jason Sanders. And since we're going to be getting to Jason Sanders towards the end of the video, Dean gets today's viewer shout. So thank you for that one, Dean, and everyone else who left a comment as well. Back to the run game. Eric Ezukanma. Not that we were expecting this, but his end arounds were very successful. I would imagine us trying to find the way to get the playmakers and speed in a variety of ways this year. The first one was nearly blown up, but you saw what Eric Ezukanma possessed, and that's the shiftiness, the speed, the ability to break some tackles. That was all on display in that carry. The second one was blocked to perfection. And in that one, he showed off the explosiveness, showed off the wheels as well. Devon Achane only averaged 2.5 yards per carry. But man, if you saw that game, it looked like he was just like a shoestring tackle away from breaking a big one a couple of times. And then with him, not on the ground related, but he did lead the team in reception yards, and he caught all 4 of his targets. He's lining up in the backfield. He's lining up out wide. I love the usage with Devon Achane through one game. But like I said, you could just tell there was a concentrated effort to run the ball early, do it a variety of ways, and it worked well with 129 rushing yards in the first half. So it'll be interesting to see, does this method, does this strategy, this theory, does it translate to the regular season? But for the time being, we'll take it 1 week at a time. We'll see if it translates to preseason week 2. And then maybe even that point, we'll get to see if Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert get added to the mix as well. We'll wrap up and do a couple of takeaways, but this topic is kind of considered those who stepped up. I got a couple of guys I want to hit on, and then I'll wrap up with a couple random players' plays that I had from my notes. But Channing Tindall, 10 tackles, 1 sack, played basically the whole game. He got spelled here and there, but he was in from beginning to end. And the nice thing was I didn't notice too much on the negative side, at least from the initial watch. I've only seen it the one time so far. He did over pursue on the run fake when Cam Smith had his pass breakup that we'll talk a little bit more about later. But man, Channing Tindall went for that run fake the entire time, and then Cam Smith made the nice play breakup. But outside of that over pursuing, I thought he did fine. And the play that I loved the most was what I saw from him out of Georgia that I was most excited about, because he found himself, it was on the play where the quarterback, like Channing Tindall went at him and the quarterback just gave up. But what I loved most about that, because you saw it in Georgia, that was he was in like a spiral, or when he decided that, hey, I'm playing in this coverage and then I'm just going to go at the quarterback, he goes and he gets there in a hurry. And that's exactly what we saw on Friday night. So I loved that play. Brandon Peely, another guy we talked about on Friday, 4 tackles, a tackle for a loss, another guy who essentially played throughout the game. His tackle for a loss was super impressive, reminiscent of a guy like Zach Sealer and Christian Wilkins. But he also made plays where it was effort plays. It was don't give up plays. It was chasing plays 5-6 yards that were already down the field as well. And that's the kind of stuff that he can see and learn from a guy like Christian Wilkins, because we see him do that a ton as well. I thought he looked the part on Friday night. He belongs. And Cam Smith, we talked about him. 4 tackles, a tackle for a loss, and a pass defense. Talked about that pass defense where Tindall over pursued. But on that play, when you see Cam Smith come off his guy with the instincts and the speed and just the overall pursuit to that ball, that was phenomenal. And then his tackle for a loss on the run play that got bounced outside on the 3rd down, the tackle on that, the ability to read that and tackle that was textbook as well. And then he actually helped on coverage on the very next play, after you could tell he wasn't really right with the shoulder at that, but he helped force that incompletion on 4th down to force that turnover as well. The things we got to work on with Cam Smith, did allow 2 catches, had the penalty on special teams, and then obviously he had to leave the game after those back-to-back plays. So room to improve, But at the end of the day, the game, preseason game, action game, did not look too big for him. And like I said, I'll wrap it up with a couple random players and plays that stood out to me. On Garrett Nelson's sack, another UDFA, Deshaun Hand, who I thought had some pretty quality reps in this game, had a very nice bull rush, collapsed that pocket, allowed Garrett Nelson to come in and finish with a sack. Elijah Higgins, how about getting some yards after catch from the tight end position? I loved to see that. He went and got 2 straight catches. The first one that went for 28, the next one that went for 8. And honestly, he got absolutely robbed on that holding call. In my opinion, it was a great block. It sprung Skylar around the edge. He would have picked up the first down. Got absolutely robbed on that call. Later did have a false start call. We did talk a little bit about false starts, delay of games, things that we've been working on throughout camp, things that Mike McDaniel wants to fix. Obviously, still work to be done there. Oh, I thought Mitchell Agude, like I said, it's undrafted free agents. We've got a lot of them that we're really hoping can continue to click here. He made some nice plays, had a sack, 2 tackles for loss. And then on Jalen Twyman's sack, that play, in my opinion, great play setting that up by Malik Reed. He beat his man around the edge. He moved the quarterback off the spot. Twyman was there in position to finish with the sack. But those are my takeaways. Those are my thoughts of the Dolphins' first preseason game. Like I said, let me know what you've got. Throw them in the comments. We'll carry on the conversation there. That's what I've got for today, Dolphins fans. And until next time, Fins